It is a lovely Wednesday morning, the 26th of June 2024, and the time is exactly 4 minutes past the hour of 10 o'clock. Greetings, land of the brave and beyond, and a very warm welcome to today's Public Enterprises Information Sharing Session. As always, we are coming to you live and direct from the Government Information Center studios in the heart of the nation's capital, Windhoek. Thank you so much for tuning in. Right. Thank you so much, Namibia, for tuning in. For this morning's edition, I will be your host, Hilani Felipe Samunyela, and alongside my studio guests, we'll be keeping you company between now and 11 o'clock. On the menu this morning, we are discussing BIPA's annual Waiver penalty program. And I am joined in the studio by Mr. Oket Jansen, the Executive Marketing Corporate Communications from BIPA. Once again, Mr. Jansen, good morning and welcome back to the Government Information Center.
Good morning, Helene. Thank you for having me. It's good to be back.
Thank you. We are delighted to have you in studio this morning. So it is now the final week of the BIPA's annual duty penalty waiver program, for registered for registered businesses, to participate in. I'm sure some of them have registered, the rest are yet to. And I'm sure you are here this morning to shed more light on this penalty waiver program. Talk to us about if there is any extension for the annual duty penalty waiver program and when it will end.
Okay. I think if you allow me, let me quickly just recap for the audiences when we started with the program as well as where we are currently.
Right.
So the Business and Intellectual Property Authority, we established by an Act of Parliament, the BIPA Act. We have a dual mandate. The first one is to register businesses and, of course, to regulate the conduct of these businesses. Our second mandate is the mandate for granting intellectual property rights and then also ensuring that we participate as members locally, regionally, and internationally to the relevant bodies. So that is our dual mandate. Now, BIPA was started in 2017 after the Act was passed in 2016. Right. So all our functions were previously held or administered by the Ministry of Trade at the time, which means that a lot of businesses registered their businesses during the time at the Ministry of Trade. Fast forward, 2017, 18, 19, BIPA is established, we are up and running, and then businesses come to us and say, hey, BIPA, wait, we hear you are talking about annual duties. What is annual duties? And we said, okay. This is what annual duties are. We started doing public awareness campaigns and compliance campaigns. Then businesses said, but hold on, we didn't know about this. Why don't you just, we understand we're getting penalties for businesses that we registered in 2001, 2010, and so forth.
Right.
And then they said, can't BIPA just, waive these penalties and let's start on a clean slate.
Fresh, yeah.
And we said, you know what, the law doesn't allow us to do so at the time, but let's consider it.
Yeah.
So in 2022, our board then approved that there'll be a waiver program which basically waives penalties between the years 2012 and 2022.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that had to go to the Minister of Trade to endorse it. She took it to Cabinet to endorse it. It had to go to the Attorney General to make sure that legally it's sound, that we are able to waive these penalties, that money would have accrued to the state and so forth.
Right.
Be that as it may, it was finally approved and we started implementing it last year. 15 November. The first phase of the program ended 31st of March this year.
Okay.
And then, of course, there was an extension from the 1st of April until the 30th of June this year. Now, I'm sure your next question would probably be, what is an annual duty?
Right.
So an annual duty is a statutory requirement by businesses, whether you're a close corporation, and I know you own one.
Yes,
you look
I
like
do.
a businesswoman, you know. So
I'm compliant, by the way.
you are compliant,
Yes.
100%. So whether you're a close corporation, whether you're a company, or whether you're a non-profit organization, or what we refer to as an NGO, annual duties are there for statutory legal requirements provided for in the Companies Act of 2004, as well as the Close Corporations Act of 1988.
Right.
And it basically says that each business at the end of their financial year, and no later than 1 month after, should submit to BIPA an annual return. This annual return, what does it do? It basically says that, you know what, I'm a registered business. I want to tell BIPA that I'm either in operation, or I'm in business, or I
Right.
intend to remain in business.
Okay.
And as such, I file that. And when you file that, for instance, for CC, you will pay $120
Right.
annually. The problem is when you don't file that timeously.
Yeah.
So if you file it out of time, that's where the penalties occur.
Comes
And
in.
these are now the penalties that we are waiving under this penalty waiver program.
Right. Rightly put there. We are learning. It's a learning process. I'm sure most of the business owners are put on their seats and they would want to learn more about this duty penalty waiver program, though it's coming to an end shortly. Mr. Jansen, now the waiver program, you've just earlier alluded to that it has come to it was extended from it ended on the 31st of March and extended from April to now. Is this still the same waiver? Is this the second extension or the first extension?
It's the first, it's the only extension.
The only extension. Right. Now that brings me to the next question. Will there be another extension for those that are probably wondering? It's ending on the 30th of June, right? Which is Sunday. So this only means it's BIPA is open for business weekdays, which is Monday to Friday, meaning it's ending this coming Friday, the 28th of June.
Very, very good question. Will there be another extension? Unfortunately not.
Okay.
Initially, we were just supposed to, and I think it's good for me to quickly, before I touch on your letter question, let me quickly touch on why we extended it,
Right.
and why there would be no further extension.
Okay.
So when it came to an end 31st of March, say the last 2 to 3 weeks before the 31st of March, we were inundated with businesses running to BIPA. Because unfortunately, as the culture that we have in Namibia, we wait until the last minute, which is not always good. So during that 2-3 week period, we were also at the various malls. So we were at Grove Mall, we were at Marua Mall, we were at Vernil, and I tell you, Helene, we had hundreds and hundreds of people standing in the queue to participate in this. I think at Grove Mall, the last Saturday, we had over 1,000 people there. At Vernil, we had over 600-700 people there. So, of course, when it ended, businesses came up and they said, BIPA, we didn't have enough time, one. Secondly, we didn't have money when you actually told us about the waiver program. We heard late about it. Thirdly, BIPA, you are centralized in Windhoek. You didn't come to the region, so we didn't have an opportunity. So we listened to the business community. I mean, we're a public entity. We're very fair and we're very open to suggestions. And we said, okay. We went back to our board and we told the board what the reasons were. And they said, okay, let's give a further 3-month extension. Reasonable, right?
Reasonable.
And in those 3 months, we decided that we would from the outset implore businesses to come early enough so that we don't experience the same long queues and waiting periods
Towards
and
the
so
end,
forth
yeah.
towards the end. We also made it 3 months instead of the initial 1 month that was requested, because we said that it will give businesses enough time to get the money ready for participating in the waiver program. Then lastly, we also said that we are going to go to all 14 regions. So the 14 regions that we went to is, we went to all 14 regions, but specifically the underserviced areas. For those that know, they probably saw me in some of the regions. And we spend up to between 2 and 5 days per town on the major towns.
Okay.
When I'm talking about the major towns, we were looking at towards the south. We were in Rehoboth, Mariental, Keetmans, Luderitz, coming. We didn't go to Oraniemund, but we did have a team post that trip that went to Oraniemund.
Okay.
We were up north, we were northeast, we were in the east, Oshinene, Omaheke, Gobabis area. We were in the west, Henties Bay, Arandis, Swakop, Walfish Bay. We were basically everywhere.
You covered.
And when we were, that was a 2-month period, April and May.
Okay.
So we covered good ground. And because we covered the good ground, we were satisfied that we spent sufficient time on marketing the event and awareness for people to come out, but that we also had a good number of people coming out. Unfortunately, those that didn't come out, we know that we couldn't reach 100% of businesses.
Right.
It's just like that. But at least it showed good faith from BIPA's side that we went and we brought this service closer to the people.
Right.
So those that now want us to extend, unfortunately, this is our last week. The program will not be extended. So for those that have not participated, this is a very, very important aspect, because the campaign, the annual duty penalty waiver campaign, was conceptualized under the slogan or under the theme, Dream, Build, Inspire. And we said that the initial objective of the campaign was to alleviate the financial burden of businesses, those that didn't know about the penalties under annual duties, those that didn't know about their compliance requirements, etc. And we said that we'll waive that so you can start on a clean slate.
Right.
So it's about ensuring that your dream is realized as a business owner. You can build onto a new compliance and a clean slate.
Right.
And once you do that, you are able to inspire other businesses to continue, building the Namibian economy. That's why we had the theme or the slogan, Dream, Build, and Inspire.
All right.
And sorry, your last question is 30th, 28th, we work 5 days a week. Correct. But because we understand that the 30th is on a Sunday, we will be operating Saturday from 8 until 8.
Right.
So businesses can come to BIPA's head office even on Saturday. So we are open this whole week. Friday, today is what? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and even Saturday. Just go to our Facebook page. You will be able to see the extended operating hours. That is BIPA_Namibia, or you can also visit our website, and that's where they'll see our extended hours for this week to make sure that we are able to accommodate those that are really late runners and would want to participate and not miss this excellent opportunity.
Right. Now, Mr. Jansen, for somebody in the remote areas, let's say Oshinene, that missed the opportunity for when you did the roadshow, is there any representatives of BIPA in the regions that are still doing business, that are still doing the waiver, annual duty waiver program? Is there anybody representing your institution on the ground?
So BIPA has 2 offices,
right?
One in Windhoek and one in Walfish Bay.
Okay.
In the other regions, we we are delighted to have a working arrangement with our mother ministry, which is the Ministry of Industrialization and Trade. And these officers of MIT act as a receiving and a dispatch point.
All right.
So they are not registration officers. So besides, or other than Windhoek and Walvis Bay, we don't have other regional representation except the Ministry of Industrialization and Trade. Hence, Helene, that is why we had teams going out to the regions. So if there's someone in Oshinene that perhaps missed us or they didn't have money at the time, we don't have people currently doing the waiver program anymore, but they are able to use, if they have a cousin in Windhoek, to make sure that they complete the documents and then they can send it. I mean, nowadays with NAMPOS, it's overnight, right?
Yeah.
You pay, I think, $50 and the next day the documents
received.
are received in Windhoek.
Right.
And we implore business owners that are still in the regions, whether you are as far as Ludritz, for those that have seen me down there, or whether you are as far as Opuo, where we have been as well. We are now talking about even in Zambezi region, Vukalo, wherever you are, there is still time in this week to send the documents on condition that these documents are properly completed. Because if they come to the point of processing and they are not properly completed, it becomes a problem.
Right.
Because these are legal documents. As I said earlier, BIPA is a creature of statute, which means we are established by law. We are a regulator in terms of the BIPA Act, as well as the Companies and Close Corporations Act and various other acts that we administer. So there are set procedures and processes that needs to be followed. These are gazetted documents that have to be duly completed. Sometimes people scratch out on these documents, which is not allowed. So imagine someone from Oshinene sends this document and they scratched out or they didn't sign, because these are legal documents and it's a legal person that is being administered. And when I talk about a legal person, I'm talking about this juristic person that is a company or close corporation that is now run by natural people called members, directors, and shareholders.
Right.
So it's very important that you make sure that these documents are duly completed and correctly completed, not scratched out, signed at the right places, so that by the time that they actually submit it to us in Windhoek, it's a breeze to go through.
Right. Now, Mr. Jansen, given we are actually undergoing the fourth industrial revolution, is BIPA perhaps looking at, in the near future, having this payments of the annual waiver, duty waiver program online?
100%. BIPA is an institution. Because we are established by law, we are a public institution. We are a state-owned or public enterprise in terms of the Public Enterprise Governance Act of 2019. But we're also a very responsible and very proactive institution that accepts our shortcomings and our challenges.
Right.
BIPA is still very manual, and our processes are too. We've not been shying away from it. My Chief Executive Officer, Ms. Vivian Kachongwa, wherever she is, she will openly talk about our challenges because it's not like we are hiding behind them.
Right.
Now, one of our challenges is the fact that we're still very manual. So because we're still very manual, it creates cumbersome processes for filling in tons of documents, which makes the process a bit longer, even the processing thereof. That being said, I'm excited to announce that BIPA is in the process of developing and procuring a integrated business registration system. This will allow businesses to file their business registration documents, to file compliance documents, to maintain their businesses from the comfort of their home or their business.
Right.
Our timeline currently is probably the next 18 to 24 months, because it is the procurement is currently with the Central Procurement Board of Namibia, which means that because it is there, it needs to follow certain processes in terms of the Public Procurement Act as amended of 2022. Of course, this is a procurement that is far beyond our threshold as a public entity, and hence that is why this procurement has to be handled by the Central Procurement Board of Namibia.
Okay.
We're also looking at a system that will come into play for the filing of beneficial ownership, and I'll shortly talk about beneficial ownership.
Right.
So what we are saying is that, Hileni, is that we are imploring the public to understand where BIPA is. We are 6 years old now.
Right.
We've set various processes in place. We are busy with various reforms of the laws, one of that being the Copyright and Neighboring Rights Act of 1994 that is now being reviewed into the Copyright and Related Rights.
Right.
It's a bill. We're also reviewing the corporate laws, such as the Companies and Close Corporations Act, to make sure that we streamline and create a simplified law that can speak to all businesses, and we are also making sure that we are on par with the international world.
Right.
In addition to that, and that will help us to also include online filing, for instance. And of course, the third thing, as I mentioned earlier, is our integrated business registration system that will really just make things easy. So we're imploring with you to be patient with us. We are there, we are coming. And once we are there, and it comes back to my earlier point of, do we have regional representation?
Great, yeah.
And we didn't want it. It was very intentional from the BIPA board and management side, not to start opening offices countrywide, and then we come online and there would be no physical use for some of these offices. Because we anticipate that the majority of people would be able to file online because we've done benchmarking.
Yes.
We've been in South Africa, we've been in Botswana, we know what is happening in Rwanda, we know what is happening in Kenya and Uganda and all these places. And what they've told us is that they've had regional offices, and when they started their online system, these regional offices became white elephants.
White elephants, yes.
So we are very intentional about making sure we know that not 100% of our business owners sitting there and watching us today would be able to file online. So yes, we will still have some offices that will make provision for those that are not digitally literate, or for those that may not have access to that. And we can't shy away that the digital divide is still a real thing in Namibia. So which means that not everyone will have access to a computer or laptop that would be able to scan certain documents and so forth, that have access to a smartphone. So we will make sure that those people and those business or potential business owners are catered for. And we'll also make sure that those that are able to file online would be able to file. And the good thing is our turnarounds would drastically increase.
Absolutely.
To give you an idea, the average time for registering a CC, which is a close corporation currently, is about 7 days. That's average. It can take shorter, it can take longer, depending on the mistakes that are on the document or depending on the workload and so forth. But we anticipate that once we have our online filing registration, we would be able to reduce it to at least a day. You know, because that's the average. In fact, there are countries like South Africa that are a few hours. There are countries that are literally an hour from the time of registration. But we say that we would be able to reduce it to at least a day for these businesses to be registered, for instance.
Right. Now, for a business owner that is currently sitting and watching at the moment or listening, and maybe wondering, what are the benefits for the business owners participating in the annual penalty waiver program?
Okay, benefits. I'll touch on benefits. I think perhaps I might have forgotten to touch on what are the requirements for participating in the waiver program, if you allow me,
please.
Hileni.
Yes, please.
So the requirements are as follows. So anyone that wants to participate in the annual duty penalty waiver program, which of course is coming to an end this Saturday, is as follows. The most important thing is make sure that you have your company details, which is your incorporation documents. So for a closed corporation, it would be your CC1 or CC2, which is your founding statement or your amended founding statement. This would now have the name of your entity if it was changed, because sometimes, Helene, it is you have your CC1, which is your original founding statement, but in the meantime, you might have changed the name. So that is why the CC2 or the amending founding statement is very important. So by the time that you come to BIPA, you have your registration number, you know who the members are, because maybe there might have been members that were removed or added. You also know what the correct name is.
Right.
Of course, for companies, it is your incorporation document, which is now your memorandum and articles of association, or your certificate to start operating this business. Once you have that, then the next important thing is to make sure you have the identity documents of all the members, either members, shareholders, or directors of this company or the CC. And these must be duly certified. So if it is an identity document, Namibian identity document, it can be commissioned by a commissioner of oath or the Namibian police. If it is, let's say there's a foreign national that is a member or shareholder or director that is not in the country, these passports, we only use passports, no IDs of foreign nationals. These passports must be duly notarized in the country where this person is by a public notary, or alternatively, they can get the document apostilled by the issuing authority or issuing jurisdiction. This is normally Ministry of Finance or so forth.
Right. I just, I'm sorry to cut you short there. I just wanted to find out, for somebody that probably lost, they are of course interested in the waiver program, but now they have lost their ID. As a Namibian, what other documents, identification documents can they bring forth?
Okay, so besides an ID, this, because we are dealing with a juristic person, as I said earlier, this company or business is its own person. It has its own life, it has its own capacities, legal capacities, capacities to act, capacity to sue and be sued. It's very important to then do so. We would take an ID, we would also take a passport. It becomes very difficult if none of these documents are available, because we rely on a provision under the Financial Intelligence Act as well as under the BIPA Act to ensure that we know our clients. It's a KYC requirement. And as such, unless there are children that are members or shareholders to this, we do not accept birth certificates. We also don't accept driver's licenses. So it's very important that we are able to make sure as a regulator that we are compliant to some of our compliance requirements. And we have compliance requirements under the Financial Intelligence Act, which is the FIA, that also requires us to make sure that everyone that we take on board as business owners and the establishment of this juristic person, we have done proper due diligence and KYC, and that is why we require either the passport or the valid passport, I must say, a valid passport, or a Namibian ID. But the Namibian ID is the key, really. Yeah. So coming back, so once they have those documents, they can come to the BIPA office. There'll be an application form that they need to fill in, which is the waiver form. You need to tell us which year you want to participate in. We will fill in or help you to complete all your documents, such as your CC7, which is the annual duty that I referred to earlier, Helene, or your CM23s, you know, all these documents. They will then get a statement of account that will tell them this is what we are waiving. And you know, the good news is, let me give you an example. If, for instance, your business was registered 2012, and you come to BIPA and we tell you that you owe us 6,000 in penalties and duties, we approximately, and this is just an approximate figure, that we approximately would waive about 4,000 or 4,500 from that 6,000. And then the business owner is left with a mere 1,500, 2,000. So it just tells you how much we are waiving and how beneficial this is from your business, because you can use that again as what the amount that we're waiving as a capital injection into your business, for instance. So yes, that is basically the requirements of what is needed. And very important to that is, we were just talking about beneficial ownership. But I'll come to that shortly after I quickly talk about the benefits. What are the benefits? The benefits are as follows. We are gearing towards a compliant business landscape in Namibia, in Africa, and globally, right? Because there is pressure from the global community for investors to invest in Africa. But in order to invest, we need to make sure that we are compliant with certain international requirements as required in terms of Article 144, that we allow international law, we domesticate this international law, and we need to make sure that we are compliant to that.
Right.
In Africa, we come to Namibia, and we also need to be compliant to certain things. So BIPA is really gearing up to ensure that businesses become more compliant.
Okay.
So the benefits of doing that is you become a compliant business first and foremost. So you can now say that, you know what, I'm compliant to at least some of my compliance requirements or statutory requirements in terms of the law. Secondly, previously we did not allow a business to amend, right? So if you had Helenis Catering and you wanted to change the name, or you wanted to put on your sister onto the business, but you still owed BIPA some money, or you were non-compliant, we could not amend your business for you. So if for those businesses that participate in the waiver program, you become compliant to your annual duty requirements, which basically means that you are now able to amend this business. When you amend, it's also beneficial because now you can participate in public procurement processes. Right. And this is a business that might be 10 years old. So why would you register a new business and want to start competing with businesses that are 10, 15, or 20 years old, for instance? So simply become compliant, amend your business if you, of course, want to do amendments. You'll also be able to get a good standing certificate. So BIPA issues good standing certificates.
Indeed.
Right?
I got mine.
You got yours.
Yes.
And this basically means that a lot of public entities have started requesting for this good standing certificate to make sure that this business is compliant to its post-registration obligations.
Right.
And if you participate in a tender or a bid that requires a good standing certificate, unfortunately, you may be disadvantaged.
Right.
And then, of course, there are also international investors, domestic or international, that sometimes come and say, I want to invest into Helenis business, but I'm not sure if this business is compliant. So I need to do my due diligence as a domestic or international investor to make sure that this business is legit, this business is compliant, not only to BIPA requirements, but to all its requirements as a juristic entity. And that is also why the good standing certificate would be beneficial, because you can show that to your potential investors and say, hey, this is my good standing certificate, it is valid for 12 months, I'm compliant with BIPA, and then, of course, there's the beneficial ownership requirement that is very important.
All right. Yeah. Now, Namibia, you are still tuned into the Public Enterprises Information Sharing Session. We are live from the Government Information Center here in the capital. We urge you to follow the discussions on our social media platforms. On Facebook, we are live on the Ministry of Information and Communications Technologies page. Alternatively, you can stream us live on our YouTube channel, and our handle there is MICT Namibia. You can post your questions there to Mr. Jansen and get clarity to some of those queries that you have pending. Now, Mr. Jansen, for somebody that may be wondering, what are the available and why payment methods for this capital amount during the waiver program? Because earlier on you've mentioned that it's 120. Is it 120 per annum? Maybe you can briefly talk to us about that.
Okay. So the annual duty, as I explained earlier, is a legal requirement for all registered businesses. Between 2012 or prior to 2012 and 2019, this duty for CCs was $80, and then the fees went up in 2020, and now it's $120.
Right.
During the time where it was $80, we added a penalty of $400, which meant that you would owe BIPA a total of $480 per year. During the time that the fees went up, where it's now $120, the penalty increased to $600. So 600 plus the 120 is 720 per year if you filed out of time and if you didn't make payment, right? So, which means that we are saying that we are waiving all the 400s and all the 600s on condition that they pay the capital amount. So this capital amount refers to the duty,
Right.
which is the $80 back in the days and the $120.
Right.
Now,
a total
for
of 120.
Sorry?
A total of, that would be 80 plus 120,
So
a total of 200.
No, it depends on the number of years. So
Oh,
let's say
right.
your business was registered in 2011. So you start paying from 2012. So it would be $80 2012, $80 2013, $80 2014,
And on and
up
on.
until 2019. Then 2020, 120, 2022, 120. The program does not have a waiving, does not waive for 2023 and 2024 due to the approval process that we had to go through in government.
Correct.
Right? So if you've not paid for 23 and 24, unfortunately, you will have, of course, penalties for that.
Okay.
But what we are saying for companies, it's different because companies which are PTYs and PTY limiteds or incorporated, they pay based on their issued share capital. So if you have less than 200,000 and less shares, you only pay the base amount of the base amount as well as a submission fee of 130 and 160 respectively. Of course, if you file late, you pay $300, but we are also going to waive those late fees of $300 in addition to the penalties. If you have a non-profit organization, the law does not require you, because you are not guaranteed by shares, the law does not require you to file annual duties, but you have to, or to pay annual duties, but you have to file your return. So if you've not filed that return, then there would be a late fee. And we are saying that we are also waiving that late fee. So even for Section 21s, you can participate. Payment methods, we do not accept cash at BIPA. We don't deal with cash. So they can either come and swipe at our office, which is a point of sale, or alternatively, they can make an electronic fund transfer, EFT, from their home computer into our accounts. We bank at 3 banks, which is Nedbank, First National Bank, and Bank Windhoek. So it would be easy for you if you wanted to come to BIPA tomorrow and you want to make a payment today, rather make it FNB to FNB or Bank Windhoek to Bank Windhoek, because then it's easier and it reflects immediately,
yes.
and you just bring us proof of payment. Alternatively, you can also do a bank deposit. The bank deposit you can do at any bank as long as you can bring us that proof of payment.
Right.
So those are the proof of payments that we receive.
Okay, now, of course, there will be talks, misconceptions about the penalty waiver program. Talk to us if you've encountered such and what those are.
Okay, so I think generally, as the public know, it was something that came a long way. So I'm sure that there are a lot of businesses that appreciate, I'm sure you'll agree with me sitting out there, appreciate that we've really done an excellent job in terms of waiving these penalties.
Right.
The challenge are that not everyone could be serviced. And that's why people are still saying extend, extend. Unfortunately, we cannot extend because we have other programs that we are running.
Right.
One of the major hurdles, Helene, is the filing of beneficial ownership declaration. And if time allows me, I quickly want to touch on beneficial ownership declaration. So this is a new requirement. Beneficial ownership is a new requirement that came into law last year, 2023, July. And this requirement into the Companies and Close Corporations Act requires companies to declare to BIPA accurately and on time who the beneficial owners are of this specific company. So what is a beneficial ownership? Or we refer to it as BO, short of.
Yeah.
this is a very serious legal and compliance requirement. A beneficial owner is a natural person, which is you and I.
Right.
If we have control over a juristic person, which is this company or this close corporation, we have either control or influence, right, over this company, or we receive substantial economic or financial benefit from this company, we are to be termed as beneficial owners.
Okay.
Now, it could be that you as Hileni, you are the only shareholder and director of Hileni's Catering. But on a yearly basis, I get money from your company for whatever reason it is, a very substantial amount. Let me say $1 million.
Right.
You then have to declare me as a beneficial owner because I receive economic benefit. Or let's say I don't receive economic benefit, but you constantly consult me on your business, and the decisions or the advice that I give you is so influential that you make those decisions based on that advice, of course.
All right.
So that is the control and the influence that I'm actually referring to.
Okay.
So it doesn't only mean that a beneficial owner is the members or shareholders or directors. It can be anyone that relates to the definition of beneficial ownership, which is control, influence, or financial or economic benefit. Now, during this waiver program, when we went around the country, people...
Sorry, Mr. Jansen, before you get there, I just would like to know, could this be, is it only if it's a registered business, or could it be a natural person? Because say, for example, now I have a business and maybe, let's say I have my kids who are beneficiaries of, not that I have nominated them anyway, but you see the surplus that I make sure that they get $1 million each per year, but they are not registered businesses. Maybe if you can just clarify it there for us.
Very, very important question. So beneficial, it's only registered companies and close corporations in terms of BIPA, and of course then trusts under the Master of the High Court that have to then comply, and of course NAMFISA has some of these requirements. So it must be a registered business, right? So the members or directors of these business, sometimes they are not beneficial owners, because there's an 8-set requirement for you to tick to see if this person is a beneficial owner.
Right.
So your children, I was talking about economic or financial benefit. It must be substantial. So it doesn't count if you just give your child $100 from your cash flow today. You braided hair and you got $100. It's not substantial. But if your children receive $1 million annually from this business, it is substantial. And as such, those children, whether they are minors or whether they are majors, if it's a small child or if it's a child over 21, they have to be listed as beneficial owners, because it doesn't mean they are owners of the business. Owners of the business are legal owners.
Right.
Owners, beneficial owners, are those that have influence, control, or economic benefit, right? So that is the difference. So that's why you can have beneficial owners that are both legal owners, and there are those that are beneficial owners.
Right.
So when we went around the country, people came and they didn't know about this. You know, despite BIPA having done so much since last year to educate the public about beneficial ownership. So there are really serious consequences for those that have not submitted their beneficial ownerships to BIPA. And this was part of the waiver program, because when you participate in the waiver program, the annual duty waiver program, we would normally require you to also comply to beneficial ownership requirement.
Right.
And then a lot of entities got the shock of their lives because they had sanctions and penalties. So what happens if you don't comply with this? The first thing is you have to comply by the end of your financial year, the same as an annual duty. An annual duty is payable and submitted by the end of your financial year, the same with a beneficial ownership declaration form. You don't pay for this form to submit it, but the challenge comes when you submit it out of time that you were supposed to submit it. That's the compliance aspect of it. Then BIPA, firstly, by law, in terms of the new provisions of the Act, we have to list you on our inactive list. This basically means that this business is temporarily suspended when you are listed on this inactive list. But once we list you, we still... Yes.
How long does the suspension take?
The suspension is immediate. The minute that we list you on our inactive list. Then, in addition to that, we still give you a 7-day notice period and say, we've listed you on our inactive list, but please comply within the next 7 days. When you don't comply, when this business doesn't comply in those 7 days, which we normally send out directives, SMSs, and so forth, for those which we have contact details or updated contact details of, then we start sanctioning them. The law requires us to sanction a business up to 50,000 once off. But we are not there. We are sanctioning businesses 3,750. Right? So 50,000, what the law requires, 3,750, what we actually sanction. So you can see that it's on the lower end of the sanctioning continuum. Then in addition to the 50,000, the law also requires us, and because it's so serious, requires us to penalize these businesses $1,000 a day until we receive those forms. But we are not there. The law requires us $1,000. We are at $75 a day. It's still significant, which means that businesses, for as long as your document or your beneficial ownership declaration is not with us, you might already have been sanctioned 3,750, which is capped, and then that $75 goes up daily for every day that you not submit or that you are late. So I implore on all businesses, if you get this message, please contact us, go to our website, or come to the BIPA office and ask us about beneficial ownership. We are not going to arrest you or anything. This is the business that we are dealing with. All we are saying is we want you to file first. Yes, there'll be a sanction amount of $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, but it will stop the minute that you file it, and then we can make arrangements for the payoff of that amount. So that is the very important thing, because Hileni, you might have heard that Namibia was grey listed as a country by the Financial Action Task Force, which is the FATF. This is the global anti-money laundering watchdog affiliated to the UN. And part of our grey listing as a country was because we could not show sufficient beneficial ownership uptake from legal persons and trust. So it's a very serious requirement. We need to get out of this, because the consequences thereof is that if we have to take any loans internationally, our interest rate will be affected. And who gets to pay back that high interest rate? Us as taxpayers. It also impacts our trade with international countries. Thirdly, it also impacts investor confidence, because we are told that Namibia is not a safe country to invest because they are susceptible to money laundering, terrorism financing, proliferation financing, and any other sort of financial crime. We are slowly coming to the end of our program for this morning, but maybe before that, Mr. Jansen, I'd like you to please just briefly outline for us the platforms in which BIPA is available, or on which BIPA is available to provide any further information on the annual duty waiver program. You've mentioned earlier, but if you can just mention the other. For those that are watching on Facebook, MICT is doing a great job, I must say it. The Government Information Center is really excellent. So you don't have to go far. You stay on the same platform. Just type in BIPA_Namibia. You will see that we are very active. You can find all the information on there. Alternatively, we also have a X page, formerly known as Twitter. You can also go to our IG, which is BIPA_Namibia, and that's where you'll find most of the information. We also have a website that is www.bipa.na. Our website have been experiencing a bit of downtime these days, so if you can't get on immediately and you need information, you can then, we'll migrate you then to our call center. We have a call center between 8:30 and 4:30, Monday to Friday. The number is 061 299 4433. That is 061 299 4433. Our call center is very busy because there are a lot of businesses that want to comply, so we implore you to just hold on. But otherwise, you'll find the information readily available on the net if you just search. And that's where they can get all this information to make sure that they become compliant businesses. We are able to drive our economy into the right way, and we are able to ensure that we can dream, build, and inspire.
Right. Yeah. Mr. Jansen, we'd like to thank you very much for taking our time to come educate us on the BIPA's annual penalty waiver program. We highly appreciate. I'm sure most of the business owners, they have learned a thing or two from today's discussion. So thank you very much for availing yourself. Thank you. And Namibia, that is all the time we had for today's discussion. Until tomorrow, take care.